Who all remember City High? Remember that song we was back when we was younger? What would you do if your son was at home crying all night on the bedroom floor cause he's hungry and the only way to feed him was to sleep with a man for a little bit of money and his daddy's gone somewhere smoking crack now, in and out a lot. I ain't got a job now cause of you. This is just a good time, but for me this is a thing I call life. What would you do? Get off my butt and stop making tired excuses. What would you do? Cause I don't want my baby go through what I went through. Finish around. What would I do if my son was at home crying all night on the bedroom floor cause he's hungry and the only way to feed him was to donate some blood to get him what is needed, but his daddy's gone? I would drop my pride now, go and get some help now. But for you, you're trying to take the easy route, but for me, I gotta figure it out. But here's the crazy thing, y'all. In that song was very educational, even with City High, because a lot of people are put in situations where they just don't have absolutely no choice. So I'm not saying what you had to do was wrong because you just had to do it. Maybe you was forced into it. But sometimes we have to think long term and not just the immediate what's going on, because our kids will learn one day. They will not be kids and they will be grown. And can we stand before them and say, this is what I did? Or even if we gave an excuse for it, or do we have to just accept our accountability, what's going on? Now, this was actually inspired for me to actually talk about this subject by a creator where I was watching his video where he was talking about whether or not just accountability straight across the board for a man or a woman when it comes down to having a child. And then if the man say he don't want it, should he be responsible for paying for the child? And just like, or any given situation. They was talking about various different ways on this subject. And I agree on some of the things he said. But the main part I agree with was the sheer fact that everybody has to take accountability. Like, look here, if you do not want, and I hope, everybody hear this, man and woman, and can understand what I'm saying. But I'm just going to say what I'm going to say because it's the truth. Like, if you do not want to take on the responsibility of a child, one, you either need to protect yourself. If you're a woman, you need to make sure you have birth control. And if you are a man, you need to make sure you have some type of protection for you as well. If that's not who you, if you want to have a child right now. But the better thing is to, you don't even sleep with a person if you know that the outcome of sleeping with someone may develop into having a child that you possibly don't want at the time or don't want with the person that you're with. Or better yet, let's just do this. The Bible sets standards for our way of living for a reason. Let's not have sex until you're ready to mentally take on that. And typically a person, it probably ain't at that stage until they are married, until they are stable. So let's promote doing the right thing the right way. And so many of us have done it the wrong way, including myself. I didn't do it the right way. I wasn't married before I had my first child. But the moment I had my first child, it was no longer about me, but it was about my child. And have I ever been in that situation? Yes, I have. Where one of my kids' father tried to convince me to have an abortion. Absolutely, positively have been in there. And his reasoning was simply, we are just not ready for another child because we have one already. And my response to him was, then we should have took all the necessary precautions not to be in this situation to begin with. And so therefore, I will not do what you're asking me to do. And you can be here if you want, or you don't have to if you don't want to. But I'm not going to get rid of a child that we both took on the responsibility of being with each other and didn't do it the right way. So it is what it is. And I even hear people say, well, women say, who is it? It is. You're being selfish. No, you're being responsible. You're being responsible for a life that did not have a choice, whether or not it was brought here or not. You're being responsible. Now, did he feel bad after his family members digged into his butt when they found out what he had told me? Absolutely, positively, yes. He was remorseful for what he said. But looking at it from hindsight, I didn't know he already had another baby on the way. Okay, so he wasn't really looking out for me. He was, or us, because his reasoning was, we can have another one later, but right now, just not time. Okay, so if someone was to hear that, they would think that you and this person would still be together in the future. This person is really trying to build a bond with you later on. And so they might do what they're asking them to do. And not knowing that all they're wanting is to get out of the responsibility. Well, back to what I said. Once a child is involved, it's no longer about what the father wants or what the mother wants, but what is best for your child. And with me, I do not believe in abortions. So that would have never happened to begin with. All right. So we have to stop just making up all these goddamn excuses as to why we did what we did, and just be accountable for our own actions. And whatever happens from the actions that you do, then you need to deal with it, because you chose to do the action that led up to whatever happened. So just deal with it. Deal with it head on. And even though you might have to struggle, even though you might be hit with situations you don't want to be hit with, take accountability for your part in the situation and just do. And if nothing else, I hope both men and women alike, when it comes to a child, take that whole thing out about just the money aspect of it. It's given. Money is going to be needed to raise a child. I don't care if it's the mother paying it or the father paying it, or you're both doing it together. You're going to need money to take care of a child, because you're going to need things. A child is one of the most expensive situations that you will be in. And then when you have multiple children, you just going to multiply that by however many kids that you're having at the time. And I don't care if it's back in the day or now. You know, when you're currently in that situation, you're dealing with the economy as it is now. So more than likely, it's going to be hard for you regardless. So you have to look at that. But back to City High, because once I made that statement, I actually was looking at City High's, I started singing City High's song in my head last night when I was finishing up my sewing that I was doing for my grandson for something I'm making for him. And that song just popped up in my head. What would you do if your son was at home, partying all night? And crazy enough, I went to sleep with that on my mind. When I woke up this morning, I saw the young gentleman's video and his stance, and I applaud him for what he said on his video, because he was a man and he basically said, I have to take care of my responsibilities, and any man should take care of his responsibilities. But then, you know, they dabbled into what other people were saying and gave their perspectives about how they feel. And that's how we learn, y'all. We simply learn from each other, from each other's perspective on things. And I've always made a statement how I wish I knew about, or there was a platform, or I knew about a platform such as this when I was going through my struggles, because it could have really helped not just me, but other people that was going through that situation as well. And speaking on City High, on that situation where the woman is basically saying that she had to sell her body and she, in various ways, whether it was sleeping with a man or dancing in order to make money, she had to do what she had to do to provide for her son. And a lot of that stuff can be dumped into your head by your own family members. And when I say family members, I ain't talking about, you ain't got to necessarily be your immediate family members, just your family in general. Matter of fact, after making my statement on there and still having that song stuck in my head, I thought about the position that I was in with my 5 kids after me and my husband had separated for the last and final time, and I had to go stay with family on multiple occasions, and family didn't They wanted you there. Some wanted you there because they truly wanted to help you. Some of them wanted you there solely because they knew you had money and they wanted to be able to get some of the money you had. And as long as you was benefiting them, it was okay. But if something came up and you was no longer a benefit to them, they didn't want you there. Some of them probably felt pressured to do some of the things that they did. But it just reminded me of a situation where I was in. I didn't have just one. I had 5 kids that I had to take care of with absolutely no help, and different various stages in my life where I may have had money or may not have had money, and had to rely on what I can either try to apply for, whether it was food stamps, because at some point I did apply for food stamps in my life, or I had to go to food banks to try to get food, or I had to drop pride and ask people to help me because I needed the help. And then if they didn't help, then I had to go figure out how I was going to do certain things. But this whole scenario and situation kind of brought back a thought in my head where I was living with a family member, and this particular family member, she wasn't doing absolutely anything far as trying to put any negative light on me per se about my situation or anything. But because I had been turned away from close family members that I used to ask for help and they would tell me no, even though this person, I probably could have just simply went to them and say, hey, I needed this, and they would have been like, here you go, because that's just the type of person they was. But because of my past experiences and not wanting to feel like I was a burden when me and my 5 kids were already a burden on you for even being in your home, because we're literally taking over your home. My family is huge at this point, right? So try not to put a hard burden on this particular family member of mine. Knowing that I've always had an issue with my blood and my anemia and stuff like that, I had got to a point when I was staying with this particular person and her husband at the time, where I did not want to ask them for absolutely nothing. I didn't, because I felt like they were already doing enough for me and my kids just for simply having us in their home and providing a shelter over our head. So I ended up going to a blood bank for the first time in my life, donating blood to try to get something that I needed for my kids, because at the time I did not have a stable job. I was a salesperson for the legal side, the legal group that I keep telling y'all about, that I'm a part of. And I had moved back to Florida from North Carolina, where I was staying. Where North Carolina, you didn't have to be licensed for it, but in Florida, you had to go through a whole licensing thing in order to legally be able to do it. So everything came to a halt when I moved back to Florida, because I was no longer able to continue doing that here. I could talk about it, but then I had to find somebody to get the person the membership, or get them hooked up with the group, and I couldn't benefit from it, which I didn't mind doing that. I would do it all the time. Well, hey, here's a person that can get you in, because I can't physically get you in because I'm not licensed in the state of Florida to do so. Until I can get myself up to that point. I end up going to this blood bank, scared as crap, because anybody that knows me know I am afraid of needles. Like, if I have to go get blood drawn, or I got to get a shot, like, I always beg and plead, please do not let me see this needle. Please do not tell me when it's going in. You just do what you do. I pray you know what you're doing. And because the minute I see it, my body literally starts shaking, because I'm scared of needles. But I put myself in a situation where I had to, I had to I had to go do something I never thought I would ever do in my life, and that was literally donate blood for the purpose of getting money for the plasma that they was going to withdraw from this blood. And I knew that I was anemic. I knew that I had issues. And did I say that on the thing? I vaguely said it, but so that I wasn't lying. So I vaguely said that, I do have a little issues, and I questioned, I even said, do you think this is okay for me to do? And they was like, well, we're going to check your blood to make sure it's okay before we draw the blood. And they did, and I'm just trusting their judgment, that they knew what they were gonna know what they were doing, and I allowed it to happen. And I gave the blood, and unfortunately, when I did that, I guess the process in the middle of the process, I was getting like lightheaded and stuff. And I kept saying I felt like I couldn't breathe. And it felt like an elephant or somebody was just pressing down on my chest. I was like, oh my God, I don't feel right. And next thing you know, I was out. And it was the guy that stayed around that told me the rest of the story, because I myself wouldn't have known. But he was basically saying, baby, you cleared everybody up out of this place. You hear me? He was like, 'cause he said, I done seen a lot of dead people in my life. And yeah, for a brief moment there, you had done slipped. You were gone. He said, you went from your color to like an ashy gray. And, they was doing all they could do to bring you back. Okay. He was like, but baby, you had gone. I mean, and people ask, people talk about what they see. I ain't see absolutely nothing at that point. I didn't know what was going on. So whether I was completely gone or not, in this man's mind, I was out of here. And by then working that whole ordeal, I had to be rushed to the hospital. I tried to, after they brought me back, I tried to just go home and go to sleep. But then when I got home, I ended up having to get rushed to the hospital because I kept going in and out. Because literally, I think from what the doctors told me, I really played Russian roulette with my life by going to donate this plasma and to never do that again in my entire life. Because had everything didn't work out the way it did, I would not have been here. That would have been it. I would have been gone. I would have ceased to exist. But I did what I felt I needed to do for my children because I needed to get them what they needed. And I myself did not have the money or the funding to do so. But that song also reminded me where I was staying with a particular family member, and we had made arrangements as to what I would pay this particular family member. And I paid them. I did everything they wanted me to do because I was staying in their house. When you're living with somebody, you have to, even if you don't want to, even if y'all made arrangement, because especially when you got kids, you have to bite the bullet to do whatever it is that they're asking you to do to a certain extent. But at this point, I had pretty much got tired of their foolishness because I had ended up losing a lot behind constantly just giving them money where I couldn't even pay my own stuff. And one particular incident, we ended up getting into a big argument where this particular family member told me, you are less than a woman, because any woman, if they got 5 and if they had 5 kids, they would do whatever they had to do in order to take care of their kids, even if it meant selling their self or selling their body. And what I responded to her when she told me that was, and this is your excuse as to why I should give you more money that you want to support your drinking and your smoking habits. Well, if it comes down to that, then me and my kids just have to go and I have to just figure something else out, because I'd be darned if I just continue to support your habit and you're throwing up in my face my situation because you want more money. Ain't got nothing to do with me being, it has nothing to do with me being a woman or not being a woman. Sometimes, that's why I say sometimes you have to really just look at things for how it really is. And sometimes people are forced into those situations that they necessarily don't want to be forced in, when having to make decisions about what they need to do when it comes for their kids or for themselves in other situations. But that's why it's also so important for both parents to actively be involved in a child's life. Now, I'm going to tag the gentleman's video that I watched that kind of inspired me to even talk about this with everything else that was formulating in my mind as well. But as always, be your brothers and your sisters' keeper. Keep God first. And toodles.